What is normal? I did the same here. I think that's really.
I had a bowl of popcorn yesterday and 2 snow crab clusters, and I haven't eaten since Sunday. Other than
A
that,
lot that you guys should really. And I mean, that was a long meeting.
Yeah, next time we'll make sure the whole day's clear on the back end. So I don't want your team
I
thinking they're not
think
important.
my team appreciated it. I hope they
Yes,
do.
yeah.
I'm waiting to hear feedback on it.
Always pleasant.
yeah, it's my first.
I didn't see you there, Mark. Oh, we're not live yet.
Afternoon, everybody. Can you hear
How are
me?
you,
all right?
sir?
Very good.
Yeah, see the Northern Lights last night.
Pretty.
It's supposed to be even
More
brighter
tonight.
tonight, right?
I took a
Good.
picture for my back deck.
All right, I'll bring the meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, November 12th. This is the DelDOT committee meeting starting at 12:30. Please join me in a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we'll do a roll call first. Mr. Marty Presley. Present. Mr. Ron O'Neill,
Present?
Jamie,
Present.
Bob McKee, present. Miss Ashley,
Present.
Deputy Chief, Assistant Chief Moyer,
Present.
and DelDOT gentlemen,
Peter Hay, DelDOT Chief Traffic Engineer.
and online.
Mark Lutz, Chief Engineer from DelDOT.
Thank you all for coming. All right, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Second? So move, thank you. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes from October?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second? So move, thank you. Simon, anyone online, any public comments? Okay. We haven't met in a little while, and tonight's meeting is basically to catch up and get some status updates on several items. And we appreciate DelDOT being here once again as our partner. We really appreciate that. We've got a lot of things accomplished already and still a little bit more to go. So, but thank you for your cooperation. First of all, can we have some updates, please, regarding any data that DelDOT has compiled since the installation of the new traffic signal at the entrance to Plantation Lakes?
So from I'll say probably the piece of data that we keep eye on all the time, and from a safety standpoint, is the crash data. So since the installation of the signal, which was October 17th, we've had no crashes at that intersection, which is great. Knock on wood, let's keep those numbers. So that's probably the biggest and most critical thing to keep an eye on with the installation of the signal.
Overall, the feedback that we've gotten from residents in Millsboro is that it is working and working effectively. I haven't heard anything in the way of major queuing in any direction with regard to the traffic signal. So that's a good thing.
Okay.
And I'm surprised with no crashes because again, I have something new out there and maybe that's the effectiveness of your warning signs, that new signal with the spinners on the top, just to let people know that there's something new ahead.
Yeah, it's a part of our process. I know the last time we talked, there was concern still about the sight distance coming east. I've been coordinating with our maintenance and operations group about seeing if they could kind of trim up some of those trees that are, or the vegetation in the, I'll say the south side of 24, as you're approaching the signal. So it's on their list for investigation and evaluation to see if any of the trimming, because it's not within the town. So they confirmed that they'd look into it.
Thank you for that.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
I know that light really helped out with the Halloween event as well. It really helped, and I didn't see any backup queue, and we were monitoring it with the help of DelDOT. And it really helped with the getting in and out of Plantation Lake starting the Halloween event.
Yeah, and the drone photos were very, very telling. Okay, next item is the reduced speed limit on Route 24 from Delaware Avenue to Lewis and Mumford.
We received the green light from Peter and Mark to proceed with changing out the signs. I contacted, I don't recall the department that you said had to be contacted. I did talk to her though. She told it was to coordinate to make sure they were on the same page.
Yep.
She was fine with it. Public Works has been notified to order the signs, and they have done that. So we're just waiting for the signage. And then once we get that, we can give you an update as soon as prior to them doing it.
Yeah, I talked to, so the individual you spoke to, Denise,
Yes.
is our Sussex County sign installer supervisor. I talked to her this morning. She reiterated the same thing. Just let her know when you guys are ready, and she'll have staff out here to take care of our piece of the changes.
Now, along with that, do we put out VMS signs letting people know that there's a new speed limit
We do not.
approaching it?
We do not.
Is that something that we should do you think? So people are so accustomed to going to 40, 45, 50 miles an hour?
We typically do not. The only message boards we would put out for a speed situation would be automated speed, like enforcement associated with it. But I mean, changing speed limits is a routine aspect that we do throughout statewide. So we don't deploy message boards with regard to it. Plus, it's also an asset management with regard to, we only have so many message boards when you talk about other aspects, whether it's construction projects, special events, things of that nature. So because of how routinely we are changing speed limits out, we do not deploy message boards or changes. There's certainly, you could go other avenues. Again, if the town wants to put out a press release, that's something that could be considered to at least announce it, and then it could be shared through social media. That could be something that could be considered.
Is the town permitted to put the one that the police department here owns on a DelDOT road out there to kind of just draw the attention of your speed is?
Would you have any objection if I put the speed trailer and or a message board out there?
I would not have an objection.
That's what I was thinking too. If we could put that out there. And where would you put that? Would you put that at the intersection of like Mumford and 24 coming into town, or you put it out that far, or where?
Prior to where the speed would change,
Okay.
probably 200, 300 feet prior to that,
Okay.
I would say.
On the other side.
Yeah, that'd be effective.
Now that area is still going to be, that's still policed by the state police, bro.
State police,
Yeah.
we have plans in the works to provide our officers with enforcement rights in
Okay.
that area.
I know there was some talk about that early on.
By the end of November, we should have enforcement rights out there.
Okay, good.
Peter, where's that change of speed gonna be? Is it gonna be where the current change of speed is, 45? That's like across from the State Farm agency there. It's 50 at Mumford currently, and it changes to 45 at the State Farm building, which is 100 yards from Godwin School Road. Will it be back to Mumford, or was it going to be where the current 45 speed limit sign is?
I do not. I didn't look at the plans before. Actually, you don't have the plans with you, do you?
I can print them, or do you want me to do? I can show you on here or I can go print them, either way.
Yeah, you just take a look at it and tell us.
Okay.
And while she's doing that, with the smart systems in vehicles now, how quickly will the change be made where the vehicles will pick up what the new speed is?
That I do not know. I mean, we
Is that-
don't have editing. We have individuals that have do it on the side, editing rights, with regard to like Waze. And we've gone in there and updated some conditions. But we don't own the information that Google Maps or any of the other GPS systems provide. So I don't know the time frame of how long it would take for those systems to update to reflect the new speed limit.
Because with the bypass, it seemed like within a day or two, it picked up all those speeds, but with regard to directions, the elevation of the bypass, I think, confused some of the GPS systems. That was interesting because it's not used to seeing an elevation at that point, and then picking it up was what I found anyway in the car I was driving.
Here, and I'm
But-
sorry, Marty, I'm sorry.
Okay.
What was your
The
specific?
question is, was the speed reduction to 35, is that going to start at Mumford? Or is it going to start up where the current 45 is across from the State Farm Office?
It is just to the east of Mumford, like very, I can just cut these here.
Short distance?
So that's when fish was there. Was approved of the board. Back to the committee, because they don't report back to the ordinance, and that's good.
But it's not right at that intersection, no.
Right. And it's going to be identical speed limits east and west, right?
Correct.
Okay. And I think actually on that, the diagram, it shows moving, does it show moving the 25 back west a little bit? Because right now it doesn't change to Delaware Avenue.
Yes, let me bring it back up. Simon's actually gonna bring it onto the screen as well, just so. No, it's saying can't load file. Did you receive it, Simon? Not yet. It's. Delaware, 25, and then it goes to 35 right at Kendall.
Okay,
So right where the sign is now 45, I
45,
think,
yeah.
that sign gets replaced with the 35.
Yeah.
I moved up a little bit.
Excuse me.
Oh, other side of 113.
Yeah, it keeps going.
There you go.
Yep, right in
I
there.
can point here.
Can you bring up the layers on that map that might be a little easier to see too? Okay.
Back here it would be 50. It'll change to 35
Mhm.
here. And then
Is Godwin School further east there?
Mhm.
That's okay.
35. 35. Off of here, right here is where the first 35 will be changed from 45 currently, and then 25 here.
Okay.
As of the 25 east of Delaware Avenue, that's one that exists now.
Okay.
Okay, any further on the speed limit reduction?
What time frame we're looking at?
So I just asked John for an update of when the signs, Sean is picking the signs up tomorrow.
So a couple weeks, 3 weeks.
Once they let us know the date for install, then we'll be out there.
Okay,
I'll be in touch this afternoon. I'll talk to John and Rich, and then if we can plan for maybe next week a day.
Yeah, just have them call Denise.
Denise, okay.
Yeah, and then she'll coordinate
Okay,
with her staff on the install.
And that's when you would want the press release and the signage out there as well.
probably prior to just at the signage with the day of, and then the press release we want to get out. In advance, just.
For install, we
Yeah.
back it out and
Yeah.
have it out
Mhm.
sooner.
That would work.
We can push that out.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Next, interim four-way stop at Delaware Avenue and Route 24. Before we get into this, DelDOT question for you. What are your thoughts about the effectiveness of the metering of traffic from the new traffic signal outside of Plantation Lakes relative to Delaware Avenue? Any feedback or any kind of data to support that it's less, which, you know, maybe an indication some people that are going to the bypass are going down Godwin School Road, some traffic going that way and not as much coming in, plus the metering effect of the light, less traffic coming into the intersection. I don't know if I've seen tremendous backups, going westbound from vehicles, headed east, backed up that way. Not as problematic as before from what I've seen.
no, it's definitely better. Question, I guess, would be whether that's due to being in winter without any additional vacation traffic, or the traffic lights had that much of an effect on it. The traffic light does give a little more of a cushion there, when the traffic light turns to red heading east, you get a little bit of a cushion there as long as there's nothing coming westbound on 24. So it's definitely better, but that's anecdotal, not anything. Haven't been out there watching it or anything. I guess the only concern would be what is it going to look like come June, July, and August? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
So, I mean, every traffic signal is going to have some influence on metering. I don't have statistical information. I think it's just like Marty, like you indicated, the observations, or you can see some level of a gap. But I still go back to there's a history of crashes at the intersection of Delaware Ave. There's a safety aspect to it. The predominant movement is that northbound left turn to head west. When you think of like the movement at the intersections, throughs is a totally different scenario, but you still have that conflict out there, and to address that conflict is an always stop interim step of when you think of a low cost countermeasure to deploy to address the historical safety concerns, and then knowing that conflict or that interest of that predominant northbound left turn existing, does that help resolve some of those situations or those conditions? Again, the always stop, when you think about it, it also is a disruption in the traffic. So you think of like the metering with the signal, like the signal today, I drove through there before this meeting and it's primarily resting in green along Route 24, where that every motorist is if they're driving correctly, is required to then stop. So you could have a larger metering effect or disruption, but it could be in a positive way with the all-way.
Yeah, I mean, if it stayed exactly the way it is right now, it's much, much safer. But I just fear it's not gonna stay there, especially when you got, close to 1,000 homes coming on in a short period of time. It's gonna dump on the 24 there.
We've debated this at the council level about the pros and the cons of doing it. And without trying it, we don't know what the real results are going to be. I mean, if you had, computer modeling that took all of the surrounding intersections into account and looked at it comprehensively, that would probably tell you what you can expect. But, is it such a bad thing to put in the four-way stop before we get to peak season to see what it looks like? What's the detrimental impact now with the lighter traffic? I don't think we're going to find until we get into really the peak season, spring of next year. I don't know if you agree with that. And we had talked about, DelDOT giving us the authorization to go ahead and make the four-way stop. But also you said that it may work for a period of time and then you have to remove it, maybe in favor of a traffic signal.
Correct. So with the it's like dozens and dozens of always that we've been implementing statewide. When you look at it from a pure safety number perspective, fatals, serious injury crashes go down significantly. Fatals were at 100% reduction. The serious injury, you're at like a 75% reduction scenario. We have seen some locations where we could do all the computer modeling that we have at our fingertips, but we've still seen excessive queuing at those locations, and then it's really like honing in on the computer models to then see, all right, what was it predicting, what was it indicating in regards to the real-time scenarios. Some of those locations are now being programmed or a part of our program for a change, so a bigger type of improvement, such as a roundabout. Others, we know it's primarily a seasonal operation scenario. And so when you look at those conditions during the season, again, when you have a pure influx of saturation to an area, it's now taking longer to get through that area, but it's now safer speeds. When you think about safer environment of those lower speeds, the severity of crash is still going down or doesn't exist. And then off peak, we're operating at normal conditions at the location. So really it's a matter of, again, why we'd like to partner with you all on these decisions of how do you want to proceed with an application. It is a unique scenario. We have Route 24 and Millsboro Highway down the street outside of town that we're going to convert to an all-way stop to the west. So at least like that piece of it, again, we can see and understand because there's still kind of the same level of or types of vehicles, the truck traffic and everything to the west. But a condition downtown like Delaware Ave, that's why we defer to you all as to how you want to do it. But there are pros and cons. And until it's implemented, you really don't know how it's gonna people are gonna respond or experience the intersection as a whole.
Yeah, and I think your point about minimizing the number of crashes is the part that's been left out of discussions that have been had, because we're focusing more on the queuing and how much time it's going to take to get through the area versus the overall picture, which takes the accidents or reduce accidents into account. So I think that is an important point.
What is the process with DelDOT if the town were to install the signs and then decided we wanted to take them down? Is there do we have to get like resolution approval? It's a long process, or could we just go out and take the signs down?
We would still want a resolution
Okay.
because again, like it's a regulatory device. And so because of that regulatory condition, we're solidifying it through the existing resolution or proposed resolution.
It-
Now, the removal would then be kind of the same process. But then ultimately, it would just be a matter of you guys then mobilizing to then remove all those signs and remove all the pavement markings. Again, you're still doing work within the right of way, so you still want to make sure you obtain the permits that are needed to do that work. So it's still like, there's still a process, but to me, it's not as onus on or at the beginning stage of trying to justify it.
What are the chances that DelDOT would decline the request to remove if the town then wanted to remove them? Is there a possibility they could say, no, we like them being up and they're gonna stay now that they're up?
I'm trying to think, I don't know of a location that we've reverted back to this date. With all the always that we've installed over the last few years, they have all remained, even locations that we have, again, the excessive queuing. Because again, we've seen the impact from a safety standpoint. And so that's going to be the balance. I'm not going to say yes or no with regards to a decision. We just have to, again, work with you on how you're justifying what information and observations you're having with regards to the situation. And then we'd be able to make a decision at that point.
Do you have prior traffic data showing how many vehicles approach that intersection in Delaware?
We do.
All right, so is that something that we can, or if you have not done it already, to monitor now to see the reduction? And I'm assuming that people are taking a different route to get to the bypass and avoiding 24 East from Delaware. All right, so that should help give you an indication that the queuing was X amount of vehicles beforehand, but now you have 30% less on the assumption that you're using the bypass versus continuing east on 24.
So we definitely have historical count data at the intersection. We can verify when that time period was. If it's in kind of a similar time period, we certainly can go out and at least collect some additional data to then see if there's what type of reductions we're seeing. The challenge is just going to be is if that data was, say, during the summer, and now we're trying to collect it now, it's not an apples to apples comparison.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you.
But let me just look at what our when we've historically counted the location and the data, and then I can at least share that information with the town, so that you have it. And then if we think it's a good idea to at least we can always do just like a peak hour count. So it's just that small time period just to get a little bit of a comparison. We certainly could do that.
Yeah, I would appreciate that because then you have some hard numbers to support decisions being made. To reconsider and remove the 2 additional stop signs or not. But it's, everyone has a different perception. Oh, it's bad. And you've seen, part of an hour of a 24-hour day and one day of the week. So it's much more supportive if we have the data to actually show that it's effective or not, to help us make a decision to continue with the 4-way stop or to consider removing the 2.
Okay.
I think we're on more solid ground doing it that way.
What would the concern be as far as queuing at that particular intersection? Are we talking about backing up on both sides of Delaware or backing up 24 going east or west at a 4-way stop sign?
Well, you already have the queuing on Delaware Ave because
Right.
of the single stops. Again, when you put the stops on 24, you're gonna have queuing. It's just a matter of what that potentially could be. I believe we shared that at one of the previous council meetings of what we predict based on previous numbers, what that queuing would look like. I could certainly kind of compile that information and just share some of those snippets after this meeting. So you have that information, then we could certainly look at if we need new counts at that location
Yeah.
based on the bypass.
I mean, I think, obviously it's gonna, in the near future, there's gonna be a lot more traffic coming out on 24. And Delaware's already got to the point where it's backing up significantly on both sides. So I guess it's a balancing act. Where do we want the backup to be, on 24 or on Delaware? And the problem with it being on Delaware is people get frustrated when they've sat there for 5 minutes and haven't moved. And then all of a sudden they want to hit the gas in a inopportune situation just to get out. And that's what makes that intersection so dangerous. So I guess we got to think about where do we want to queue it? Do we want it on 24 and
Right.
take that, or we want it like how Delaware is backing up now? And secondly, if none of this had been done, what was your time frame? Was the time frame changed at all as far as putting a traffic light up there at Delaware? Or I mean, was that in your 2-year plan, 5-year plan, or?
So it's not, we don't have an identified schedule for it. Again, we presented to the town different options. Our suggestion was the traffic signal. We can justify the traffic signal now. It would just be a matter of if the town wants to pursue the traffic signal, once we have your sign off, we would then start our design, which typically is like a 10 to 12-month process. And then we would be able to schedule once funding is available.
With that, there's a traffic, I guess what you're saying, the traffic signal will reduce the queuing because I guess they're synchronized in some fashion. Why would they dramatically reduce queuing versus just a 4-way stop sign?
You'd have both would influence the queuing. Again, it's a matter of, from a safety standpoint with the all-way, we mentioned like the frustration of the driver of now a poor gap judgment. That all-way essentially is taking that guess out of the driver. The traffic signal does the exact same thing. But again, based on, I'll say, the growth that we know that's coming, sooner or later, that always stop based on what we were previously saying, it's going to meet its capacity, or the ultimate threshold to then start having the conversation of something else should be programmed. And so also too, when you think about like the 3rd lane widening on 113, when that construction's ongoing, especially in the southbound direction, are you going to have people that veer off and want to find alternative routes? And is Delaware going to be influenced by, say, that project? And so again, doing something, I'll say now, well, what does now look like, or what does that scenario look like? And if we can implement something, whether it's an all-way, I'll say today, which then again, it's still monitored, it's still evaluated, doesn't mean that it's like the end all be all of the condition, but a traffic signal, that's another level when you think about it, just a pure expense, but it can set things up for the future, knowing that more growth is coming, there's construction projects that are coming. And so how does that help? So to me, either, the town wants to pursue an all-way, we're deferring to you all. But I would say the signal is still on the table because we have the data to support the pursuit.
What's the time frame on that, the 3rd lane widening again? Is that?
I'm gonna defer to Mark. Mark, do you have that info handy?
I mean,
Right,
we're obviously.
So we talked a little bit about how we're changing the way we communicate DelDOT schedules, I think at the last meeting. So right now, right away on that job is scheduled to start in fiscal year 27, but we don't currently have construction scheduled at all.
Okay, all right.
So that's for and there's been we're trying to better explain that to people that we're not going to schedule the construction funds until we're far enough along in the right-of-way acquisition, so we have a really solid handle on what that schedule is. Because we've seen particularly on a job like that, we've seen our right-of-way times, they can vary anywhere from like 2 years to 5 years. So inevitably, we would communicate our staff would communicate like best case scenario is 2 years. The right of way is going to be done and we can start construction in the 3rd year from then. And 8 times out of 10, it took more than 2 years. And now we're telling you, nope, 28, 29, 30. So we've kind of, on our larger projects, we're not even going to communicate. Right now, it's just right of way scheduled for 27. And when the right of way is, 80% complete, then we will communicate a construction schedule.
Mark, is there a lot of right-of-way issues with that stretch of highway? Because a lot of it seems to me like would be taken up by the median.
I believe I don't have the plans in front of me. My recollection is there's a lot of side street tie-in work that is a fair amount of right of way. In other words, adding turn lanes to some of the side streets. And that's really, because you're right, a lot of the right of way, it's going to be widening towards the median, but we're also doing a lot of improvements to a lot of the intersections. And I think that's where a lot of that right of way impact is coming in.
I know that's off the topic a little bit, but I was just trying to get an idea of when that, looking at that amount of traffic coming off of 113 southbound and going on to Delaware Avenue. It looks like we got a little bit of time for that. So, okay, thank you.
If, Peter, you said the design typically takes 10 to 12 months for the traffic signal, and then it can begin once the funding is available. This might be a question that's not able to be answered, but how long typically does it take before funding is available for a traffic signal? Like,
We try to, so typically we're trying to design it, say the first year and then construct it the following year. And so, but then I'll say the sooner a decision is made over a traffic signal, the best, because if funding does become available and we say can get ahead of long lead time equipment, like poles, cabinets, things like that, we will try to see if we can maneuver some of our funding to then at least order some of that material ahead of time, knowing that we have these projects that are coming in the next few years.
so if the traffic signal were to be decided, do you think it would be, instead, sorry if it's too vague, but would it be like between design and funding available construction, do you think it would be like a 2-year, or do you think it would be a 5-year? Do you, just on average, what are you seeing? for that?
I guess just thinking about our programs, funding, it would probably not be next fiscal year, so FY27, but we could probably look to see if a decision was made of like a fiscal year 28 time period for installation, or at least the construction of it. That's again taking into account, we have that enough time through design. And most of our efforts previously, we put some really high level conceptual efforts done. So a lot of that signal work is already there. So I don't think like it would be on that high end time frame for design, but we know there are right of way constraints. So it's a matter of just, does the property owners sign off on agreements that were needed so we can put equipment out there, things of that nature.
Yeah, so it sounds like it would behoove us to put the request in now for the signal at Delaware Avenue because of the lead time required. We know that the 4-way stop is in place. We don't know that the full effectiveness of it yet, but we know we're going to have to migrate to a signal at that location, and probably better traffic management by having signal at Plantation Lakes entrance, Delaware, and 113 that are connected and synchronized. So as far as the best alternative, it sounds like where we need to go. So if we put the request in now, at least we could be ahead of the curve, if you will, with regard to funding. So can we do that, or do you need something from the council officially?
I would say have the council make a decision on what you want to pursue, if it is a traffic signal, and then ultimately just relay that information to me, and then we can start working on it.
Does a new resolution have to be drafted indicating a signal rather than a stop sign?
No, I mean, as long as it's in, I assume it would be in the minutes. So as long as kind of the decision, and sometimes I would assume like how the vote worked out. Again, as long as it's in the minutes and you share the minutes, then that's fine by us.
And is there anything in the fine print that would prohibit us from putting the 4-way stop sign up now and going forward with the request for the stoplight?
Yes.
There is.
Yeah, so that's the other, so the scenario is if the all-way works, then why are we gonna program a signal until it's absolutely needed?
Right.
And again, it's a matter of maybe we've seen locations with always stops where they're working completely fine. And so we've kind of backtracked on even the need or the pursuit of something else. So that would be the challenge with the Allway is that if it's in, see how it's operating, see if it's working. Based on our history with the, especially the recent ones, we're not seeing needs to convert any of those Allways, especially ones on state routes already, to a traffic signal.
So it sounds like the prudent thing would be to go forward with the four-way. And then if that's a failure or doesn't work as well, then it put a request in at that point.
Correct.
And we would know by the first heavy season. We'll know whether it's effective or not.
Mhm.
And they had the data to support it from what was previously existed and what we find out.
And we already have the four-way in, say it's there for 6 months to a year. If we put a request in for the traffic signal, nobody comes out and tears up the four-way that day, right? I mean, it's the four-ways will stay there until the traffic signal is operational.
We would still want to justify it. So
Right.
again, it would just be a matter of like, what are we seeing with the Allway? Because again, like we know there's going to be your peak time. It could be a small peak, 10, 15 minute to say an hour time. We have yet to see like an hour. Usually it's about the peak 15 minutes. Probably the closest one to Millsboro that if you wanted to observe it is Zor and Peterkins, where like that intersection converted to an all-way. We know the heavy inbound, outbound of the schools produces queuing. But when you go out there, the remaining, say, 23 hours out of the day, it's perfectly fine. And so that's the balance of just because you may have a really small period of time with long queuing, in our eyes, you're still providing a safe environment out there. So we're not going to pursue the justification of a signal. Now you're looking at other components with the signal. Do you really have safety numbers? Where our numbers on Allway, we don't have an increased safety issue at any of our Allways. And that would, to me, would be the leading factor of how to justify moving to the next level. Again, growth within the town, those things are, they're coming. That could certainly play into a factor. But safety would be the main driving factor in my eyes.
Okay, thank you. With regard to the resolution here, Jamie, is this something we discuss on a committee level and agree to this to bring to council? With regard to the four-way stop?
It came back from council to the committee to clarify, because I think council wanted to have some sort of reassurance that we would determine when it was going to be implemented. If I recall.
Yeah, this resolution was approved, but they don't want it going through to DelDOT until it goes back to council for full approval of green light, go ahead and install it. So I did forget about that too. I need to make sure I'll relay that to Public Works so they don't contact Denise before it goes back to council.
Because council wants the authorization.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was
They
just,
They wanted clarification as the justification from DelDOT if they believed it would be successful or not, and the reasons why, I think, was the full consensus.
Well, there's two different kinds of justification. One is queuing and the other is safety. So it sounds like safety, that's undisputable, indisputable. So that's going to be a positive outcome with regard to safety. It's all comes down to the queuing. But the queuing alone shouldn't override the safety. And if you're going to weigh the two factors that side with the side of safety, I mean, unless the queuing is, double, triple what it was before, but we don't know.
Consideration of the speed limit change and potential LSVs as well.
That's a whole nother dimension.
Just thinking again of what.
that's going to be another.
Now, with regard to the queuing through Delaware Avenue and the work on 113, I have noticed that there still are some truckers that are going through 24 business through town. And maybe that's just because of the traffic condition now where it's that much lighter because most of the trucks are using the bypass. But at some point, the council is probably going to come back to DelDOT and say that we want to consider weight limit reduction or weight limit max through the town and or number of axles of the vehicles. So by doing that, then will trucks continue to go east on 24 to 113 to make the left to go to the bypass, or are they going to take another route prior to that? Depending on which route they choose, you may back up that left turn lane for 113 back through Delaware Avenue if it's a lot of it is trucks.
You're jumping ahead to my other topic to discuss, which was that topic.
Okay, we could hold off on that, but it's I mean, all these pieces factor in
They
LSB,
do.
all of that. So, fair enough. Fair enough.
Well, I guess, so hearing that, again, there's questions that council had about the four-way. I mean, I have no problem with us kind of digging up some of the history and then checking kind of that historical information based on current data because I think that's really the start. Because if we are seeing a good percentage of a reduction of vehicles, today, the question still exists of, well, what are we going to see in the summertime?
Right.
We can always make the commitment of then we'll doing a recount, say in the summertime or in the peak time period, then see, okay, well, what does those numbers indicate? But again, that can give the council and this committee a little bit more information on a final decision towards what to do at the intersection, whether it is, say, an all-way, or starting with leave it as is, an all-way or a traffic signal. I will offer that if that helps kind of this committee and the council.
So you're saying maybe to hold off on the resolution until we have that.
And until you at least have the data, because it sounds like that maybe is one of the key components of if you are seeing a reduction, anecdotally, you're seeing it today. There's some level, we just don't know how much that is.
Right,
It's the same thing with the truck traffic of, well, how much is the truck percent on that roadway? And so I think at least giving you some information on what we're seeing with the numbers at that intersection can at least give you a sense of, no, we're seeing increases because, yeah, the ease of maneuverability, or we're seeing an overall decrease. Like, I think that's just another piece of information for you all to then ultimately make a decision. So I offer that to you today, especially with there being some questions about the resolution.
I think that would be important data to see. I'd like to see that myself, to see that,
I mean,
and there again, I know we're not going to see where we are in the peak data with that or in the peak seasons, but at least that would give us a start with some data to look at.
Okay.
so you're talking about looking at the traffic situation currently, not waiting through the summer, or?
No, again, I'll be able to, I'll summarize all of the data that we've collected or we have available, because there's been some, like, again, a lot of the developer projects, they've been required to count that intersection. We have access to all their data counts, so we can at least compare and show over time of what data exists at the intersection. And then based on that information, I have no problem getting new data now. Just to then have that information available. And then if there's a decision of, no, we'd want to see that summertime data, we'll just add it to our agenda and we'll collect that information. Especially if there's kind of I'll say a hold of a decision associated with the intersection because of the data component.
So it seems to me that our decision will be, do we want to put up with another summer? Do we want to take the chance that traffic light and the bypass works so well that that's not going to be a problem in the summer? And I still think it's going to be, because I still think they're going to use Delaware Avenue as a bypass.
So with the installation though, I think it can move pretty quick now. If you have that data, and correct me if I'm wrong, so say you do a Memorial Day weekend count, within a couple of weeks, we could have the signs up for the remainder of the summer. If we were to wait, because we've already gotten approval, as long as we coordinate with Denise at the sign company, is that correct?
For the hallway?
Yeah, if that was
So the-
decided after the data.
The
went-
all-way, you're scheduling it and working it out, and then you're obtaining a permit.
Yeah.
The coordination with Denise doesn't occur.
Okay.
Because everything is the responsibility of the town. So ultimately, again, fast forwarding, you have all the approvals, you have the permit. Now it's just a matter of you guys working the mobilization schedule with in-house staff, contractors, things like that, to then go and install it. So ultimately, it's as quickly as
The town.
the town wants to move on it. Ultimately, we'd want the resolution and all the legal documents processed before we're starting that. But again, we usually can get like a resolution executed, and like once we have your resolution, it can usually turn around pretty quickly. Or we can at least put it to the top of the list so that we know that you have it on your schedule, say within a few days, we can work with you.
So should we go ahead and get all the legalities taken care of now? With the thought that come Memorial Day weekend, we decided that, okay, we need the four-way there. And we would be okay doing that, or is that time frame between now and June gonna cause a problem?
I guess the question is, are you, I still lead to like, are you sure that's the decision you want? Because once you execute the documents, to me, it would be, you've executed it, now let's like move forward with it. Because the town's ultimately justifying that traffic control.
Okay.
So I don't know if I would like slow play, kind of, you've executed everything and you've kind of held off on it until Memorial Day. Now, or at least before Memorial Day, again, knowing like the peak traffic conditions, I would imagine you'd want the contractor and the staff to be in and out with the least impactful to traffic out there. Which you can see it now, like if the temperatures were good, it would be try to get it done now. Just like efforts that we're doing. We're trying to get as much striping done as we can before our season kind of shuts down. And then if it can't happen before that season, it's now trying to do it like early spring, before those peak traffic volumes start to pick up.
So if we talked about maybe April, resolution through the council in April, that can go through, and then we have a whole month, almost 2 months before we get to Memorial Day weekend, the heavy weekend, to give us a chance to
But then
execute.
once- I guess that's the legality question. Once we go through all the paperwork and we say, we're gonna put the sign up there, we can't change our minds then. Or can we, in June?
I mean, it would just be a matter of drafting another resolution. So I would just kind of take
Yeah.
those things into consideration, and especially the other piece of it is if you're leaning towards the traffic signal, I go into the sooner we know about a traffic signal decision, which doesn't require a resolution, just a matter of kind of like how it's presented and the information is voted on at council, we can start that effort.
Yeah, but that could be 2 years
That's
away.
2 years, right,
Mhm.
right.
Granted, when we look at any level of intersection or location, usually we're looking at, well, what other low-cost countermeasures can be deployed? Some could be unfavorable, but they still exist as options. I mean, if there's concerns, thinking purely the safety side of it, there's some entities that have chosen to do time of day restrictions. So like during certain peak times, you're gonna restrict left turn movements or at that location, to then help reduce the conflict points. Those can be ideas or things that the town could consider, especially if you have to do something now, with then knowing like there's more weight on the signal perspective. But a time of day turn restriction does put a lot of emphasis on local law enforcement.
Yeah, and you gotta have somebody sitting there watching that all the time.
I don't know, it just seems to me that probably because I believe the last meeting we had, you said, if we put the four-way stop sign in there and then the state comes to us and says that's a problem, you're causing excessive queuing, and you can tell us to take it out at that point, right?
Correct.
And we would probably be in agreement with you because we're gonna be traveling those roads every day. So it seems to me to be prudent to go forward with it now. And then if we have a problem in the future, then we can, take it out.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, and it's another device or mechanism that people have to change their regular travel habits with. Like adding a signalization to an intersection is something, changing your routine. This is nothing changing a routine. So as they're relearning their routine because a stop sign is there, the four-way stop, it's getting them prepared for the busier season. So right now it's probably not going to be detrimental because the traffic is lighter, but people are getting used to that stop. So I think it would help in a learning curve. So I would
agree.
not have a problem
Yeah, I agree.
putting it in now, getting people used to it. I mean, ultimately, it's going to be a traffic signal at some point, just based on volume. It's inevitable. But for now, my feeling is to go with the four-way. Is that something you want to bring back to council as far as a recommendation from the committee?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, in my personal opinion. Anecdotally, again, the people I've talked to, they still, especially the elderly people, are still scared of that intersection. They're scared to hit the gas pedal and get out when they got 50 yards of clearance. They wait. So I still think it's a hazardous intersection, even with the reduced traffic. So I'm in favor of going forward, and if it's proved to be a headache or cause more problems than worth, then Peter can tell us to take it out.
Yeah, there's nothing with the stop sign, four-way stop versus, say, a traffic signal. And in a lot of shore communities in the off season, instead of functioning as a traffic signal, it's amber in one direction and red on the others. So it's a stoplight. The main drag would be 24 is going to have the amber signal, and Delaware Avenue both directions has the red. But there's no equivalent of that with stop signs, correct? In the off season where they get covered up or they get removed.
No, usually
So-
if it's a traffic signal, we're trying to keep it as a full-time traffic signal.
Because that would be effective. That's one way to do it, but and it's a matter of people, again,
I can see a lot of accidents on that.
refamiliarizing them. Oh, it's not there. I was there, and
We were there yesterday and it's not now.
Yeah.
So is that a consensus from all committee members, just from the minutes, and to take it back to council next month for the recommendation to install the four-way stop now?
So we don't have to worry about the traffic data that, the proposed traffic data we wanted to see, or is that just go ahead and do it now?
no, I'd say go ahead and do it now, but the traffic data is going to determine whether we consider removing it or not.
Is everyone in agreement, or does anyone, just so I have it for the minutes and for the calendar worded on the agenda?
What do you think, Ron? Wait.
I don't know, my gut feeling says to wait, but if, I guess I don't really see harm in putting it in there now. To be prepared for it, but I don't want to get to a situation where we put it up and then all of a sudden, oh, well, we don't really need it, we'll take it down again. So that's not, but I'm okay with putting it up. Yeah.
Peter, what would the potential, what would the potential or estimated time frame be if they decided to have them removed from the time that we submit a resolution for removal to you to the time that they can actually be removed? That they would have to stay up after the request of.
I would say once you send me the resolution, I'm not gonna hold you up from removing
So it could
it.
be within a month. So
Yeah.
from the meeting, from the next council meeting, we could take them down the next day if we had a resolution saying we want to remove.
If
them.
there's big issues,
Mhm.
then I think we'd all be trying to mobilize to remove it, like, so, but again, I don't think any of us are predicting that level of catastrophic situation, but
Okay.
I would say, again, once the council votes on it, you have the resolution, to me, it's like, I'm gonna give you the green light to say, all right, go work to
ahead.
remove everything. And then we'll work the back end paperwork, because there's the interest. But like everything, there's always a honeymoon period for people getting used to it. That's why a lot of times we're partnering with law enforcement in regards to the new condition that exists out there, to get people educated. And then if there's other, I'll say, citations that have to be issued because of the situation, that certainly can occur. But it's just things to think about as you're progressing.
What's your thoughts, Assistant Chief Moyer? So, I think she,
Man.
It's going in the minutes.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. So initially my thought was, I always make minor increments and then, wait and evaluate and then make minor increments or changes and then wait and evaluate. I think between the bypass and the light, we've made some changes. My thought was I'm going to provide the council with a monthly update as far as crashes. At that intersection, and if we see that it's not correcting the issue, then that would be the time to pass the resolution or wait for a whole year's worth of data and then bring it back to the table. But I don't want to overcorrect and then deal with the queuing issues and whatnot. I know, I mean, I can sit here and provide you with data from October 17th when that light at Plantation Lakes was going in, but the number is 0. We really haven't had enough time to monitor as far as what the bypass and that light has done to the safety of the intersection preceding it. So, yeah, I mean, I see all sides of this. I just would, warn as far as making overcorrections and maybe allow time to, like I said, I'm going to give you updated information. I've added it to my monthly report where we'll see if accidents are still occurring at that intersection. Then maybe at that point you want to bring it to the table and pass a resolution, but that's just.
Just to take a step back real quick, the change from 35 to 25 in that area, is that change on the east side or west side of Delaware Avenue? You said Kendall Street, so is that
Kendall Street is the west side of Delaware Avenue.
right?
Yeah.
So where would the 35 go to 25?
Right there, I believe she said right at Kendall Street.
At Kendall Street? Okay.
It was just to the, I believe, just to the.
If you,
Right.
if
West
you know
of it.
where the police always run their radar, right, it's that horseshoe.
Right there.
That is the limit of the 25-mile-an-hour zone. We always set the limit of it. And so typically we're pulling people over right now in like the 45-mile-an-hour zone because of where it is right there at Kendall Street.
Did that ever come through? Simon?
I guess my question there would be, if you did put a 4-way stop there at Delaware Avenue and 24, would you still need that slowdown before you get to that stop sign, or just eliminate that stop sign, just make it 25 on the east side of Delaware
And
Avenue?
that's kind of my point. We're making a lot of changes in that small area of 24. Should we make the changes that we've made and then wait to see if we've corrected the issue before making any more?
It looks like it's right at the corner of Kendall and Laurel Road.
Gotcha.
I mean, all the talk I've heard of is in the bypass is very effective. Great job, DelDOT, everything. And I know it's limiting traffic. But you did bring up a good point. Whenever lane traffic does begin on 113, 24 or Delaware Avenue again become a feeder for bypassing that. So I mean, again, my suggestion, I guess, would just let a couple months of data roll in. We'll see if this is needed. It doesn't necessarily have to be done today.
I did have a question. So Marty, you brought up kind of the seasonal piece. So I guess I imagine you see a bigger concern or hear of a bigger concern during those, I'll say, seasonal conditions, like your Memorial Day to Labor Day scenario versus today. Again, I go back to there's a few municipalities that will put in and I'll say not even time of day scenarios, but seasonal scenarios. Not to the always stop level, but at least to be like, okay, we know that during the peak season, we have to put in these mitigating factors or these mitigating treatments along this corridor or at these intersections to address whatever the concern may be. But then your off season, those things kind of go away. Again, it's just more alternatives for the town to consider, especially if it is like you're gonna see more of the concerns ramp up during the peak season, late Memorial Day to Labor Day. Then how do you hone in on what kind of treatments could you deploy just during that time period?
Yeah, but you know, we talked about two things. We talked about the queuing and we talked about the accidents and property damage and stuff. To me, the danger is Delaware Avenue, not Route 24. It's somebody coming northbound on Delaware trying to make a westbound turn on the 24, especially when you got traffic coming at from an odd angle on the other side of the street. You know, if somebody's coming west on 24 and then all of a sudden they want to make a left on Delaware Avenue, that everybody's mind goes crazy and it screws everything up. So I think from a hazard standpoint, the four-way would mitigate that on Delaware Avenue. I guess we won't know until the summertime how many people take Delaware Avenue to cut through, but I don't see that changing unless the GPS has changed.
But that's where, well, like I offered the data, like seeing like how many people are actually making, say, the eastbound and northbound left onto Delaware Ave. Well, if that's a really, really small percentage compared to the total intersection movements that goes into it is well, should we look at them or do you want to consider just mitigating? How do you remove that piece of data from the intersection? Well, the way to do that is to put in a turn restriction. And again, you're taking at least that conflict out. Again, now somebody has to decide of where they're going to go. Well, they could continue east, they can go to Wharton, they can make their left, they can go up to 113, they can make their left. So there's alternatives for somebody to go. That northbound Delaware Ave left onto 24, is it unreasonable for somebody to go out the Radish Road to Mumford when that big, like the large community that's going in, or is that community gonna, and members of that community gonna already naturally use that alternative route? And do you consider, again, but that's a predominant movement is that northbound left. But having that data at least could give you a sense of here's what that movement, the percentage of that movement in relationship to the total intersection.
Let me answer a question that you may not know the answer to. That's one of our, or at least one of my concerns is that the new developments, Plantation Lake South Shores, there's on the approval, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, there's approval for a cut through from Plantation Boulevard all the way to Radish Road. So a lot of people will take that alternative to avoid Delaware Avenue and 24. My question is, if the developer, since these are private roads, decides there's too much traffic through that cut through, and he says, I want to shut it down, he's able to do that, correct?
It's deeded public use. It was deeded public use, I believe.
It's
For Somerton Chase.
Yeah, so
They're not town roads, but they're.
yeah, so to me, it goes back to the record plan on like, well, what was it recorded with the county and what was submitted to the town in regards to that access? And as to like the dedication or the alternatives, but I would at least from a traffic impact study perspective, like closing that off changes the distribution and the assumptions that would have went through the department's process to obtain approvals. Where having it open, it's a totally different level of assumptions.
So you're saying they can't close it down?
That's not what it was reported. It would have to come back to council to change the report. So.
Okay. Well, that's better.
It's a private road, but it is public access. just for Somerton, South Shores. Public road. This is part of Plantation Lakes. It's a town road.
Okay, so it can be used.
Town, but
Yeah,
Somerton Chase is private roads, Plantation Lakes is a whole public road.
Right.
Town roads, so.
Well, as far as recommendation, I can go either way. We can wait, until the summertime where we can get it at least anecdotally and maybe the data you collect, make maybe more intelligent decision. Or we could go ahead with it now. I don't think that traffic's gonna slow down on Delaware Avenue, but, I don't think waiting 3 or 4 months is gonna kill us. Hopefully it don't kill somebody else.
I agree with that. I can go for the waiting.
I will say that the accidents we have had there, very few of them are what we call PI, personal injury.
Mhm.
Most of them are PD.
Mm-hmm.
I think the risk of serious injury is low there. But there is a lot of it. You know, a 4-way is going to mitigate all these. You know, so. But I guess my concern is that we're overcorrecting and we're going to create the queuing that you were talking about. And excessive and just inconvenience people and get a bad rap for overdoing corrections along 24.
And that was kind of my theory too. And you bring up a good point about the incremental steps. And I think seeing what that speed limit change there, that 25 to 35 to 25 right in that area to see.
If I had even seen one fatality over the past year, I would be pushing this to go through.
There was a couple of, one that rolled over, but
Yeah, and even the PIs that we are seeing there, I don't think we have any serious injury at that location. Doesn't mean it's not gonna happen. You know, I might eat my own words here, but I don't see the statistics showing that being a serious injury type of intersection yet. With lowering the speed and even with heavy traffic, we often see you know, low speed impact kind of collisions because of the traffic.
All right, so committee recommendation is going to be to hold off on the resolution for the 4-way stop until we have data back from DelDOT.
And I'll, if you guys tell me what you want to see in the monthly report, you know, ideally, I'm going to provide you crash data for that intersection. But if you want to see anything else, as long as I'm capable of doing that, I'll include that in my monthly report and even put a section for that intersection so you guys can monitor that and bring it back.
I think that would be important. That would be, I'd like to see that data anyway, just for that.
Is there any other data minus crash data, maybe split it between personal injury and property damage? Maybe stop sign violation related for the Delaware Ave side.
No, and what I'd like to see, your officers could probably just observe when they sit there at the horseshoe, you know, how big is the queue coming from 113 on Delaware Avenue and how big is the queue coming from.
I've never trained them to count queues. I don't know if they know how to do that, but yeah, I would defer to DelDOT.
Depending on where they're sitting off the road there, it's probably not far enough out where they could actually see.
Yeah,
the queue.
I mean, in my understanding, the way you guys count cars is you'll see who comes up to the intersection. If they turn left, turn right, or go
Yeah.
straight. Yeah.
I have a clicker. You can borrow that when we go fishing, we keep our fish count on.
Not knocking anything, but I think the most I can do is have them count how many cars come to that intersection as opposed to trying to
Not to make fun of it or anything, but I think most of the locals know you're gonna be there.
Yeah.
On the best behavior.
It's no secret. I mean, we're surprised people still speed there because we've been there for so many years.
Make it Bridgeville.
This is going to eliminate our
Or
ability to be there.
Green.
Hmm.
So is there a time frame that I should put in the minutes that we would like to see this back at a committee meeting to have the data to review to then decide how to proceed?
I would say give it through June,
Mhm.
Maybe July.
At the absolute latest.
Okay. Moving on, speed limit sign amendment on Radish Road.
Mr. Mayor, this is Mark.
Yes, sir.
Would it be all right if we switch, go to the last agenda item? I need to leave in about 10 or so minutes, and I have some of the data you're looking for on the last agenda item.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, Mark. Not a problem.
Yep, thanks. Sorry to push it out of order.
Okay.
But you all have been having a really good discussion, so I didn't want to interrupt earlier. So apologies on I thought we would have had this data earlier, and there were some glitches in the data collection and then some of the quality control, yada, yada. So on the bypass itself, data from last week, we had on average 8,500 vehicles a day on the bypass. And of that, about 1,300 a day were trucks. That number, so that's an average over a full week.
That's east and west.
Yes, combined east and west, and it's over a full week. So this time of year, pretty obviously, the traffic is pretty, both truck traffic and vehicular traffic is significantly less on the weekends and higher on the weekdays. So that's that 8,500 number and the 1,300 number. That's an average over 7 days from last week. That is up from the first week that it was opened. The first week that the bypass was opened, it was about 7,000 vehicles a day and only 300 trucks a day. So in particular, the truck traffic has really picked up significantly on the bypass over the last month and a week or so since it opened up. So that's the data on the bypass. We're also tracking overall traffic volumes in town. We're seeing about a year over year. So compared to the first week in November 2024, compared to first week in November 2025, we see about a 13% reduction in traffic on Route 24 at State Street. And about a little bit more, 16% reduction in traffic as you get out to Route 30.
I take Route 30 home and my commute has diminished like about 10 minutes average coming in and out each day. It's nice.
The reduction in traffic in town, the numbers seem less than anecdotally what I've heard. And I've driven through town a couple times, but I don't live down there. You all live down there. From what I've heard, it seems like I would have expected a bigger reduction in traffic on what's now Business 24. But yes, it's definitely showing a reduction, but not as much as maybe I would have expected.
Now that reduction is cars and trucks combined?
Yes, so we don't have any permanent data collection devices related for trucks on Business 24. So we have special equipment that we have out on the bypass right now that's getting both the classification of vehicles. So that's why I can give you the truck data on the bypass. The data we're getting from town is from the loops that we have related to the traffic signals, and that's just total vehicles, not classification.
Right. I noticed you had another device at Godwin School and Sheep Pen Road. What is that
Right.
monitoring?
Sure. So we're seeing we have a couple. So there's a couple different data points there, but overall on Sheep Pen at Godwin School, we're seeing anywhere between 10 and 30 trucks a day. I think that's the biggest concern on Sheep Pen Road. So that's, so we don't, that's, as you said, Mr. Mayor, that's a portable device that we have set up. We don't have like before data or data from November last year. We set that up, I think, in second week of October or so. And then of course, Godwin School Road was closed there for several days while the contract was doing their work. So we have much less data out there, but we're going to continue to collect data as everything you all have been saying earlier, right? Obviously, we're in the off season now. We'll get through the winter and things will pick up, spring and summer. We also, there's an equipment issue with one of the detectors we have out there that we need to get fixed, but I don't know if you all have gotten additional complaints. I know at our last meeting, I think at that time, you all had one complaint about trucks on Sheep Pen Road. I don't know if you've gotten additional complaints or if you all have heard anything more, again, from your standpoint.
I think it was from the same individual that was reaching out to the elected officials, but you have to go back, and you probably know this, Mark, the history behind the initial request by Lennar, the developer at the time, to abandon Sheep Pen Road in place, which was denied at the time. And those same elected officials are the one that was supportive of that. Had that actually happened, Sheep Pen Road abandoned in place, it would have required Lennar to build a parallel roadway in between Sheep Pen Road, the existing Sheep Pen Road, and Country Living Road, right along the tree line, right outside of the edge of Plantation Lakes. That probably would have been more effective for a truck route. It's unfortunate, in retrospect, that was probably the call that should have been made at the time.
So again, we need to make some adjustments to the one data collection device that we have out there to really make sure we're collecting the data. But we're not seeing massive amounts of trucks on Sheep Pen Road at this time.
Right.
So but you did say you're seeing about between 10 and 30 trucks going
per
through there?
day. Yes, per day.
Yeah.
And now I don't know how many of those are, destined for, are they quote unquote, do they have an origin or destination on Sheep Pen Road? I'm sure some of them do and some of them don't. We don't have the origin. We don't have any kind of origin destination data.
And you don't differentiate between, say, a UPS truck and a tractor trailer?
These are large trucks.
Okay, so there are tractor trailers.
Yes, I don't have the exact measurement in front of me, but these are larger trucks. Yes. So there's certainly going to be a much higher number of the UPS type of trucks.
Right. And of the bypass numbers you had, the 1,300 trucks over 7 days, I'm guessing that it's a no-brainer. It's probably 90 some odd percent, near 100, that trucks that are headed south on 113 are going right onto the bypass. There's no reason for them to continue further south to go to 24 to go through town. So those are probably all being captured. It's the northbound direction on 113 where you're probably going to see occasional trucks making the right turn onto Business District going east.
I would agree with that. Again, we don't have specific data on that, but I think that's a extremely logical assumption. Again, I need to leave in a minute or two here, but I think Peter can work with you all more on what, again, both agencies need to do because it's like we've talked about on many of these topics. We both have responsibilities, and truck restrictions is another one where you have a responsibility in state code, and then we have a responsibility in reviewing and approving what you would like to do. Again, I think the bypass has been successful so far, but I think we can also start more seriously thinking about, in my mind, and again, it's really, we defer to you all to kind of make the initial actions of considering a local services truck restriction on Business Route 24 in downtown Millsboro, and potentially also on Sheep Pen Road. And then again, Peter can go over like what data is needed, all the things that we're talking about for speed limits, and we talk about for all-way stop or traffic signals, right? There's things in state code that again say the town is responsible for this and DelDOT's responsible for approval. And again, Peter can go over all that with you, but I would, I think, I wouldn't be surprised if both of us want to now start talking more seriously about some of those, what we would call local services restrictions. We would recommend that they be based on axles, not on weight. I think for enforcement, your police, Assistant Chief Moyer can confirm, but you all don't have a way to measure weight in the field as far as I know. Now, I guess you can, pull them
Not
over
that,
and,
not that they couldn't learn that.
but
We can-
I would suggest it's a lot easier, and our standard practice for this kind of a restriction is an axle-based restriction, which is much simpler to enforce. So, again, that might be something we want to either have a follow-up meeting in between meetings to talk about that, or again, like I said, Peter can kind of send you an email and go through all the steps that are needed for both agencies if we want to pursue that.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And to Acting Chief Moya's point, the incremental changes, that's in the scope at some point. We don't need to do it now, but we're kind of, learning from the experience, monitoring, collecting data, and making intelligent choices.
Right.
So, and there's conversations to be had with the truckers that are coming through and the organizations that they represent. So that's all
Right.
part of it.
You would express that you had already done that. You can continue to do that. That's certainly a good point. And like some of it's just might be education. Like, hey, folks, do you realize if you just go up, northbound trucks, if you just go further north up 113 and get on the new 24, the bypass, it's actually going to be faster for you than going through town. So,
Right.
So again, some of it might be education and whatnot. So again, I got to run. If you have any questions about the data I just threw out there or anything more about the truck restrictions, you can just give it to Peter, and he and I will follow up afterwards. And again, sorry, I told when Ashley was trying to get the meeting scheduled, I said, yeah, I can squeeze it in, but it's going to have to be virtual, and I got to run. So thanks everybody. And like I said, any other questions you have or follow-ups, Peter and I will catch up after the meeting.
Very good.
All
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you. One of the, I don't know if it's a complaint, but one of the things I've heard from some of our truck driver friends there is that if you're going westbound on 24, coming from Mount Air, it's easier to come through town, because if you go on the bypass, then you got to come south on 113, then you've got to make that right-hand turn there at 24. And that is where the pinch point is for a truck driver trying to make that right-hand turn on 224 there at the AutoZone place. Because there's just not a lot of room there, and you've got to swing way out into traffic. And then if traffic is backed up going westbound on 20 or eastbound on 24, then you've got to make that turn there. So that's one of the pinch points that I've heard some guys talk.
There is a little turn lane, isn't there?
It's very small, but
Very
it's like
small.
trying to get
So-
a tractor trailer through there.
So is that something, Peter, as a result of the widening on 113 that either would be addressed or could be addressed? If that's going to help facilitate a safer flow of traffic.
I would assume there's definitely improvements at the 24-113 intersection. I can confirm with the group as to what they're planning conceptually. But I imagine, again, you're adding an additional lane, so it gives more width. I imagine they've extended turn lanes, things like that,
Right.
as part of the project, which is normal practice for us when we go and evaluate things.
So if that's something that you could find out for us,
Yeah.
or at least to make it a point as a follow-up, if you will.
Mhm.
As far as the downtown district, the westbound traffic isn't really a concern, is it, for downtown? It's more the eastbound traffic.
It's for me, my opinion, it's not as much of a concern because it's not on the main drag. It's on the backside of the buildings on the main street, if you will. I don't know how people feel about that, live on that street by having the trucks come through, but with the other retail establishments and restaurants and that kind of thing, it's better that they're on that street versus going eastbound for sure.
So truck restrictions was on my other topics to discuss. So like, if you don't mind kind of entertaining that piece, and
Yeah,
we can go back to the radish.
Okay.
So after the last meeting, I had our staff check 10 roadways. So that was Godwin School, Sheep Pen, Revel, Lewis, Phillips Hill, Country Living, Mumford, Indian Town, Handy, and Hickory Hill for any historical restrictions. Because usually that's the first thing that we do is we say, oh, there was a restriction established 30, 40, 50 years ago. Why doesn't it exist today? Okay, then it's an easier process of just us updating the town. Our history shows that we have no restrictions on file for any of those roadways. So Mark mentioned kind of working with you guys on restrictions, and what we did, I want to say way before the bypass, was what we started is we said, let's just get data. Let's get the Mark mentioned, like some of the data pieces don't break it down by axle. So let's get at least a 5 to a 7 day data set to then have an understanding of, like, are we talking 1% trucks? Are we talking 10% trucks on that roadway? And then from there, some of these roadways, typically we'd coordinate with our maintenance groups, our bridge staff, and then especially with state police on a lot of the roads that fall outside of the town, to just understand, okay, if we were to pursue a restriction, like, do we have issues, say, like with the existing surface of the roadway that are caused by large vehicles driving on it? Well, naturally, we want to preserve that road surface and that infrastructure. So we would then, that's an easy, like, okay, we have an asset issue out there. Let's put a localized restriction out there. If there's a bridge issue, that goes into kind of the weight topics that we coordinate to see if there's a restriction that needs to be placed because of, say, a pipe or a bridge or something along those lines. And then ultimately, from a state police or an enforcement standpoint, like, if, because there's now language in state code of what local services means, we coordinate with them on, like, okay, well, what do we, if we were to restrict this roadway, do they have any concerns with now vehicles or trucks driving on another roadway, or how they access it? So that's why I wanted to look at, like, collectively, like this western side of Millsboro, of like those 10 roadways. So to me, I think the start of the process would be is, and we offer this to everybody, is let us do the data collection. Then that data collection can at least give a sense of, this is the percentage average info on trucks that are traveling those roadways. Then we can start having the discussion over the actual resolutions for roads that fall in town. We can also prepare, like, the signage, it's the signage plan that would be associated with the restrictions, to make sure, like, yes, in advance of business 24, like the northbound 113, you're advising a truck next right that there's a restriction, instead of when they turn on, and then there's the concern of, well, they had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So that's why we can always assist with the data collection and the signage plan. It really comes down to the traffic investigation, which is similar in line with what you're doing with the speed limit stuff, the all-way stuff. Is just compiling all that information, knowing the various concerns, and then you're sending it off to us for implementation.
Now, do you get involved with origin and destination studies with regard to truckers or no?
We have done them in the past, but usually this is where, if, like, the town has interest in a restriction, then that would be something that you all would need to then determine if you're gonna then pursue that, like, through the investigation piece of it. That's why in-state code, specifically around trucks, the local municipality has the authority to complete the investigation and the engineering. We say it can be very costly to complete a truck related restriction to anybody. And so, to help that hardship that could exist, we offer, at least, let's do the data collection piece at the front end, which is just tubes. Typically, they're tubes across the roadway. We can get that raw data, and then we could do the signage piece of it. If you want to go beyond that, that's where then the town would have to then figure out, all right, is it worth pursuing a private engineering firm or the engineer that you have already on contract, to then take it to the next level for the investigation of the engineering study for trucks, which is then your origin destination components.
Okay, I think it may be helpful, especially if there's a hub that's west of here. Then the majority of the trucks, where they're coming from, and try to hit those hubs.
So then I
That'd be
would,
helpful.
so if you're interested in that data piece, then I would suggest reaching out to the engineers that you have on contract to see what that would cost. And then determine if that's something the town wants to pursue. But again, I have no problem knowing some of the other concerns that exist of actually collecting the what I mentioned is the classification data for those 5 to 7 days to at least get the ball rolling on the understanding. Because again, if we're talking 1% of trucks over a small percentage on that roadway, then at least it gives you a sense of, do you want to spend those dollars to do that versus if you're at the high end of the percent, then at least it helps in that conversation.
And in the brief discussion, I mean, not to be determined here, but I hear the issue regarding the weight versus number of axles. But I think it's more on the weight size than it is on a number of axles that are doing damage to the roadway. I mean, it's the dump trucks that are overloaded. It's the waste haulers that are overloaded beyond their legal limit.
So years ago, this is up in like the northern Wilmington, Claymont area of the state. We had a lot of weight-based restrictions. And they were all state police jurisdiction. The only way for them to truly enforce it is they have to bring out scales.
Right.
And that's the only way that they can enforce it. And so then we switched everything to an axle based.
I have to look and see if there's any like AI applications when it comes to weights of trucks, if there's another way to do it with all the technology that's out there.
I do not know.
Want me to ask ChatGPT?
I think AI's got the #1 country song in the country this week, so probably do anything.
I mean, number of axles, if you take your typical chicken truck, I mean, JR, any idea what that is when it's loaded?
Depends on what product you have on there. If it's feed, you're 88,000.
Right.
Live birds, it'll depend on what bird package. It could range from 70 to 85,000.
Okay.
Like, for example, I don't know if you guys have a tanker truck, but like,
Mhm.
if Millsboro pulls their tanker truck out, that's 83 to 90,000 pounds. So just something to keep in mind too. So if the tanker truck comes out on weight restriction, then you get a trooper that might be sideways.
And even too, like thinking of like I know like DTC, like their buses. So when you start talking about weight, and especially if it's like an alternative fuel source that has some more weight, it can then influence that type of restriction. But from an axle scenario, it would then not meet the criteria. So it's just when you start putting in a weight restriction, it can be challenging or has bigger impacts to a broader range of vehicles.
Axles would, as far as an enforcement standard, it would be cost efficient for the town, for us to enforce.
Right.
Otherwise, we'd have some capital costs in regards to.
No, just
absolutely.
understood. Gonna build sensors into the roadway system next time DelDOT paves that 24. All right, so since we're on this topic, if we can continue and Jay, not to put you on the spot, but appreciate your feedback. What has Mount Dare's experience been with regard to the bypass?
And the microphone.
You don't even get my food.
I can bring
It would,
Oh, I can stand up. If you need me.
yeah.
So our overall feeling has been really good about the bypass.
Mhm.
You know, I think the beginning, that first week, we did a lot of education of drivers, and you know, we have a lot of senior journeymen that have 20, 30 years of driving the same path.
Of course.
But no, they've done really well. I think our biggest challenge that we see is once you get off the bypass, they still keep the racetrack mentality, and not our drivers, but some of our employees, I'm sure. And what we're finding is our trucks that are coming out from like the feed processing side, they don't have near the time. So there's a lot of concern with drivers making really challenging darting motions across to turn left to hit the bypass, because where traffic traditionally would slow down to 40, 45 mile an hour, they're still coming off that bypass at 65 into a straightaway right into the center. So that's like a concern. I think the other concern I've heard from a lot of our employees who utilize coming through town like I do to go home is that turn lane. I'm surprised you've not had more head-on collisions there, because you're turning right, what did you call it? Business 24 now, I believe, sir? That narrows within a second.
Right.
And you're right into oncoming traffic. I watched two drivers from New York, because they had New York license plates on yesterday. No offense, but that as they went to merge, they just were not educated to the scenario and literally went into the lane to come over to merge. And I think that's my concern for our employees. We have 2,800 employees between processing center, rendering, feed mill, and then the admin building, that transition that way, that we're providing them the best path home so they can go home to their family. But overall, the drivers like it. I mean,
yeah,
seems to be good. I think the challenge, like we shared, or you all shared, coming northbound, mentality is it's easier to turn right at the light there at Wawa or the old CVS, cut in, or Rite Aid, cut in that way. But we're doing all we can. JB Hunt, contract drivers, our seasonal farmers that are bringing grain in. Hey, be intelligent about what you're doing. Look at this, just go down a little bit. It's a safer route, smoother route, utilize that route in.
Yeah. Now JB Hunt is a dedicated hauler for Mount Air.
They're one of the mount dedicated, but probably all three poultry companies in this area use them, as well as organizations that are down past us. So it's kind of tricky. They have dedicated on the side, but you don't know that the dedicated to who.
Right.
Yeah.
Because of all the trucks that I've observed, that's not, I'm sitting out there for days, a number of hours.
Yeah.
But it seems like the ones that, and not all of them,
Sure.
but some are going straight on
Yeah.
24 business, crossing 113
Yeah.
through town. And it just, because it stands out with the label on the
Absolutely.
truck.
Yeah. You'll notice ours because the only thing we have contracted with them is live haul. So
Okay.
if you see caged birds, that's what we're dedicating just that to. So
Yeah.
So I think Mark had mentioned that there is a time saving aspect by going north. Is that true, or we haven't?
Yeah, I think the challenge with that is who you ask and what time of day.
Okay.
Yeah, you know that what I call the rush hour for Mount Air, that usually congests that corridor. Yeah, by far, go down, bypass, hang in. We're even having employees from Salisbury that come in, venture down that way and come across because it's faster. But the evenings, at night, we're finding some drivers that we're having to remind, because all of our trucks, all the Mount Air trucks are all digitally controlled, so we can tell where anybody is within a 30-second ping. So we're looking at that and saying, hey, make sure you're going the right way.
So most of your issues are coming away from Mount Air, leaving Mount Air.
Yeah,
Going
exactly.
to Mount Air, the bypasses seems to be
Absolutely fine. Yeah.
Do you have compiled data that you would be able to provide, or even shows the origin of the trucks over the past month or 2 months, that we could kind of see?
Yeah, I
Where
can reach
the
out to the
trucks are coming
director
from?
of transportation for Mount Airy.
I think
I'll
DelDOT
see
was
if-
interested in that information.
Yeah, I'll see if we can work with you guys and see what's available and what they're tracking on their base. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank
I
you.
can even reach out to JB Hunt too, to see, they have a whole different control package that they run, but yeah, be
Okay.
glad to do that for you
Awesome.
guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And for DelDOT, I guess, I don't really know what you guys are looking for. Could you do actual restrictions one way and not both ways? Because the way, obviously, downtown is unique. So could you do an actual restriction on what we call Main Street and not on Washington Street? So allow Mount Air to come down 24 west, but not east. Or is that not something that's ever been done.
Yeah, it's
before.
not on either side of the street. It's a separate street altogether.
Mhm.
We'd have to talk more about that one.
Okay.
I'm not gonna dismiss it, but let's have more conversations.
Or has it ever been done where there's a time period of axle restrictions? So after, say,
Certain hours.
midnight, then Mount Air can run down the street.
Um,
Because I think one of the conversations we had with downtown was they want outdoor seating
Right.
without having to see, chickens. coming
Having
down.
chicken piccata when a truck rides by.
That's just as fresh as it can get. Talk about farm to table, there you go.
I'm unaware of a time restricted truck restriction,
Okay.
but doesn't mean, again, if that's the pursuit that the town would want to do, like, it's something we'd have to just talk further once we have that information.
What options are on the table. Okay.
That's interesting.
It'd
Great.
be interesting to see too, once all that construction just north of town before you get to the bypass, I think they're repaving that now.
Mhm.
I
Okay,
think I saw a line of trucks out there the other night.
Yes.
Once all that, because that's kind of a pinch point right now. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Once that gets all done and gets cleaned up, that'll be a much easier path for some of the trucks going eastbound to go, north to get that bypass.
Yeah, I know as an old farm boy driver myself, coming off the bypass and heading southbound would scare me in a truck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is just tight, and when you're dealing with 68, 70 foot of a truck,
Mhm.
and that merge lane is barely that.
Yeah.
It's a little tight, so I'd welcome whatever changes or, whatever you guys have on the books to widen and lengthen that to give all the drivers proper runway.
Yeah, and some of the points that you had mentioned with the truckers is a little bit dodgy at
Yeah,
50 miles an hour trying to come out from one of those stop signs.
yeah,
And I've heard from other residents driving cars that they were afraid to come out there because people are not doing 50.
oh no.
You're on the downgrade.
Yeah.
And the other question I have to go to the truckers is it Jake braking? I don't know if there's another term for it.
Yeah, engine brake, Jake brake.
Yeah, engine brake. So you hear a lot of that. So should there be signage saying no Jake braking at
I
that
think
point?
it's illegal in Delaware.
it is,
Right?
it
Yeah.
is, it's a state
That's-
law.
And nowhere in Delaware can you
Really?
take break.
Nope.
They do it.
Not
I was gonna say, yeah,
It's-
We are not, our trucks do not have, any of the Mount Air trucks do not run engine brakes.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, but-
your contract haulers,
Yeah, you hear it quite
Oh, yeah.
often.
Oh, yeah.
However,
Oh,
it is
yeah.
illegal to
Three
take breaks.
or 4 in the morning, that's,
Yeah.
you're hearing it. I hear it resonating through.
yeah, they're saying that like the nice smoothness and the hum of the road and the Jake brake, it's a great acoustic.
Quick question, Peter. Any thought or any concerns about extending the guardrails going over the Mill Pond and Gravel Hill? It just seems like there's gonna be a time somebody's gonna,
Dukes of Hazzard.
Go down
off
the river.
Into the
Yeah.
river.
Oh, I'm interested in first snowstorm, see how many people are down there.
Mhm.
That's,
That's one of the things that we talked about when we took that tour very early on. was-
Rollovers.
I'll have to follow up with the design team on that one and get back to you.
okay.
Well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate
Yep,
your
absolutely.
cooperation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Everything you've done so far, we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's made a difference.
You bring up a very good point about that on ramp or the lane coming on to 113 southbound out off the bypass. That's a tight, tricky spot there.
Yeah.
Any other questions or issues with the bypass and status?
There's still no auto accidents?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
I know I'm not on the log, but coming off of the bypass at Mount Air, I see that there's a lot of road working, roads being tore out.
Jay, would you mind, please come to the mic, because other folks listening, they won't pick it up at all. That's okay.
So, coming off the bypass on the Mount Air side, there's a ton of really nice road work. You're reconstructing and trying to, looks like, take back and put some swells in, but there looks like the walking path is gonna continue by the crush and run, almost right up to the Mount Air property. I'm just curious, is that the actual plan or is that like a service road? Cause the only concern I have is we have, I love people that want to exercise, but we need to be really careful that they don't continue down what is the existing Townsend pathway there for grain while we have grain trucks too. That just creates a safety issue on our property.
It's another one. I'll have to circle back with the
Okay.
design team.
Yeah,
I imagine the concepts on the Millsboro bypass website may
okay.
show
Okay.
information about that.
I'll
So
take a gander.
I would definitely look at the project website too.
All right, I appreciate it. It was
Yeah,
just
no
a
problem.
thought this morning as I was down in Carolina at our facilities last week and I looked over, I'm like, well, it looks like a walking trail with lights. And I was like, ooh, it's like right where trucks, tractor trailers. So
Right.
it might not be a pleasant either for somebody, so. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll come back to the speed limit sign then, on Radish Road.
Yes, so I talked to staff today. Our goal is to get that paperwork finalized into you next week. For our end in regards to the resolution, which then allows you guys to then change out the signs. So hopefully our goal is next week.
All right, so we can vote on that for December.
That was already voted
Yeah,
on.
that one
Oh,
was
so
already-
The resolution passed on that already?
Yeah, so we're just preparing our resolution paperwork to then legalize it.
Okay.
And then once we have that, which then includes a signage plan and everything that you have for like 24. And then that's what I talked to staff this morning, their goal next week.
That's a long time coming.
And then for that, is it the same process as 24 where we need to contact Denise and order the sign through the DelDOT?
You can order the signs to the sign shop.
Okay.
I don't think there's gonna be any changes on our end, but again, we would indicate that on the plan, is if there's any DelDOT responsibilities, then it would be identified. If it's not, then it would all be on the town.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or issues? Have a motion to adjourn, please.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And second. So